pilot script, I loved Susan right away because I really understood that she is this character that needs so much validation and, has a real need for control in her life. And the more she seeks out validation and control, the less she has, especially from her mom. And I think it's really comical because it's so tragic that, here's this girl who's very competent and, always constantly butting her head into her family's business, but she never gets any glory. And so I can relate to that very well.
And how did you become involved with the series overall? Did you have to audition for the role, or did the producers approach you with the part? What was that process like overall?
Yeah, I auditioned for the role, and I remember, when you do these pilots for an actor, I mean, of course, I would love it for them to offer it to me, but usually what happens for me is that I have to go on a series of like 3 to 4 auditions, first for the casting director, and then you meet with the director and writer, and then you go to producers, and then networks, and then studios. So sometimes it can be like a 5-step process, and for this one, it was the same as well. But I do remember I was super nervous about it because there were seeing so many different actors, and the role was for half Korean, half Irish, and so there were other like sort of mixed race actresses, and so it was quite intimidating. And then I remember just trying to focus on the Susan's point of view, and then I go into the room and I met Steve and Rob Long and Peter Billingsley, and I had met them before. I mean, like I knew of Steve's work before, but never met him. And he was so kind enough to get up from his chair to greet me and shake my hand. He like got up and shook my hand and made me feel so like welcomed and comfortable. And so, and then as soon as I started, they loved what I did. And then afterwards, like Rob Long, the producer of our show, and Peter Billingsley, they were throwing things at me, different directions, and we just sort of like played. And then I just knew right then, I mean, it was just such a fun atmosphere, like it was one of the most fun auditions I've had that season.
And speaking of Steve Byrne, who created the show, and he also stars as Susan's brother on the series, what's your working relationship with him like overall?
I can't stand the guy. No, I'm just kidding. He is so generous. I mean, he's like the big brother that I never had, that I wish I had, and now he's my brother. I mean, I really do feel such a he's always constantly generous, and he plays so many roles, because he's one of the creators of the show, so he still pitches and writes, and he's also starring in the show as well. And and on top of it, they're going on tour to promote the show, so he does stand up. Like when we're resting, they're on the road, visiting all these cities to promote the show. And so, I mean, he's one of the the hardest working man in Hollywood. I don't know, one of definitely, and such a great ringleader. He's always positive. I don't think I've ever seen him, ever come in like with a chip on his shoulder. And then there's stand-up comedians too. So you come in with a bad day, like if your dog dies, and they've got like 30, 40 other jokes about dogs, So it's always such a laugh. And yeah, I really adore Steve. He's totally a great leader.
And on the show, Susan is really consumed with her one-sided rivalry with her brother. So, why do you think that
Yeah.
she's so consumed with that rivalry overall? And do you think that siblings can really relate to her struggle in particular?
Yes, I have this issue with my sibling as well. I mean, it's not. I don't have a brother, like I said, but in a family, I always feel like people are assigned these roles. And no matter what, I mean, they're assigned these roles early on. And then no matter what, it's like everyone keeps, participating in the roles, in the same roles, and they feed off of each other. And I feel like, in this family dynamic, it's like Steve is the golden child and he's the son, and I know that in a lot of families, the firstborn is always favored, and he is the firstborn, and he's also the son, and so like he's my mom's the golden child, or that's what Susan thinks. And so And so she's always like having this one-sided competition with him. And anytime my mom praises him, it's like, what about me? And then she doesn't get any. And so she thinks, so whether it be in her imagination or not, it's like everybody's sort of stuck in this, role that they play in the family, and you can't escape it no matter what. So for Susan, she's always hyper defensive, hyper competitive, because she's trying to get outside of that role, but it's like she feeds it too, She always sort of sets herself up for failure.
And another one of your co-stars on the pilot episode was The Hangover's Ken Jeong, who played Susan's husband Jason. So what was it like working with him, even though it was only for that one episode? What was that process like overall?
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. First of all, when the writers told me that I got a husband, I was so excited. And then when they told me that it was Ken Jeong, I was like, falling off the chair. I was so happy. I'm just such a fan of his. And literally from the every week we get new scripts, and then the first thing that happens is we all meet in this conference room, with all the executives and some of the studio heads, and we're sitting there with the entire cast, and we have an out loud like a radio play, because it's like a sitcom, so I think it's really important to hear this rhythm. And so we have the table read, and when Ken, the moment he opened his mouth, to read for his part, it was like laughter all around. I mean, he just takes it out of the ballpark. I mean, he's so funny, and his delivery is so real, and it was so subtle, and it was just he had such a strong point of view about, being this, kind of important doctor who's very busy, and he was so fun. And when he came on set, he told me that spending the week with us doing the show was one of the most fun he's had, in a long time. So it was really cool. I think he got a big workout. Because, like a sitcom, a lot of times I've done, I've been guest stars on some of these shows, and it's a lot of waiting time. You sit in your trailer, and you're waiting a lot of the time, and the acting comes for free. But I think with our, our format and the sort of old style format, you're constantly on your feet rehearsing, and we're rehearsing the entire week before we shoot for a live audience. So it's like putting up a play in 1 week. And so he was up and rehearsing, and, with everybody, and it's like a huge collaboration with the writers. And so, yeah, it was really fun rehearsing with him. I mean, a lot of the parts, got cut off, but there were some fun moments, before the cuts, too, that were just hilarious.
And one of your other co-stars on the show is Dan Lauria, who's known for being on the Wonder Years. So what was it like working with him, since he plays your father on this show? What's your overall working relationship with Dan like overall?
Dan is awesome. I mean, I feel like such a nerd, because I have such crushes on everyone on my set, but I really do. I adore everyone. Dan's so amazing. He totally plays that father role, like the one who's been in Hollywood for all these years, and he knows everybody, and you kids better learn the history of your own, careers in cinema. So he invites us over to his house on Sunday afternoons, and we have a big potluck barbecue, and he's got a huge pool. And so we go swimming, and we all, the entire cast, and we just go and we hang out, and then afterwards he'll have movie night where he teaches us, about what we should know and the filmmakers that we should know. I remember he was showing one of my favorite films, Being There, with Peter. Is it Peter? Oh my God, I'm totally fading. But he, every shot he's like, you see that? Now that's acting. Just such a doll.
And Vince Vaughn is one of the executive producers on the show. So have you gotten the chance to work with him yet? And are you a fan of his work overall?
Oh, I'm such a fan of Vince Vaughn. I've had such a huge crush on him for years before when I found out that he was one of the producers of this show, I was both intimidated and freaked out and totally ecstatic. And yes, but when I met him, I mean, he's so generous and so such a hardworking man. I don't know. I don't know how to explain. Like, he's off doing his movies, and he has a production company, and I'm sure he's so busy. But whenever he's in town and he's not shooting films or whatnot, he's on our set, watching our rehearsals. And I'm thinking, oh my God, Vince Vaughn is watching me work, and he's giving notes. And on tape night, especially, he's watching with his headphones, and it's like the whole energy level sort of goes up when he's on set, and yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And are there any particular plot points or for the upcoming for the rest of the second season that you can discuss overall?
Um, there's a lot going on. There's definitely, I think it's really fun to play this kind of, there's definitely a funny dynamic between my mom and I and Susan's character, and they're really developing that. I think Okcha has a lot to do this season, which is going to be really fun to see. There's actually an election involved on the show, which was just really fun to shoot. Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a musical. I don't want to give too much away, but the bar is, yeah, keep on your toes.
And like you mentioned earlier, before Sullivan and Sons, you've had several recurring roles on several different series, such as How I Met Your Mother and Sex and the City. So, what is it about television overall that you enjoy working on it so much?
Um, I love television. I mean, I love all formats, but I think television is so interesting because, for me, it's like you get to know these characters, and every week or so, the people can sort of tune in and sort of vicariously live, or get to know these characters. And I think with television, especially with Sullivan and Son as well, like every week we get to find out more about, Bookchaw or more about Steve, and it's just nice to sort of, spend your week, and it's almost like a family, or people that you sort of have in your life. And I guess that's the intimacy of that, and that relationship is really fun. Like,
And besides television, you've also appeared in several films throughout your career, such as Yes Man and Little Black Book. So, do you have a preference in maybe doing films over television, or vice versa, or do you just enjoy acting in both mediums overall?
yeah, I think with the acting, it's such a different platform. I mean, definitely a sitcom is so different than an hour television, or the film world as well. I think the biggest difference is that sometimes when you have multicam cameras, and you're doing like sort of like a stage that's a play that's being recorded, with multi-camera, you have kind of a little bit more freedom to sort of, play and perform for a broader, for the audience, and especially when you have the live audience. And then with the single camera, it's like the camera picks up every little thing, and it's so subtle, so that you give sort of more of a personal performance. And I think it's just a different platform. And it's like, if you were a painter and you work with watercolors or acrylics, it's just a different medium. So I enjoy, those because they're different. But I think I really do love this sort of old style sitcom format, just because I am, for an actor, like the stage is sort of where we have the most freedom to play.
And besides television and films, you've also appeared in several theater productions and plays overall as well. So, do you have an interest in maybe returning to theater in the future? And do you feel that having experience in theater maybe influenced your work on TV and in films as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, Dan Lauria says it best. It's like sometimes we do these sitcoms, and then we have a great time, and then it's so refreshing to sort of go back and go to the stage and do some more like dramatics, or I think for an actor it's just important for our craft just to be constantly doing different you know formats and, to sort of exercise our muscles. So, I mean, for me, my first love is the stage, and because I went to NYU with a theater major, and I remember sometimes for me as an actor, the places that I get the most joy out of is not even during the performance. Sometimes it's like during the rehearsals when I'm rehearsing a play, and you come across a problem or something, or a difficult moment, or you don't quite understand the character, and then you're rehearsing, and then you figure it out, and then you solve that problem, and then it's just that process, I guess. It's the process of acting that I enjoy the most, and that goes also for television and film as well. Sometimes with film you have, to go back to your question, I think with film you sort of have like, you don't have like the leeway of rehearsing with, I mean, I guess it depends on the director, but a lot of times, like for Yes Man, I didn't get like rehearsal to do the scene with Jim Carrey in that stationery store. It was like, we were there for like 14 hours, and then, they were shooting different things, and then I got my like 10 minutes to do my thing, like I was waiting the whole day, and then you get 10 minutes to like do it, and so you're right there, and you have to be sort of present to, create this world with, these other people that are playing with you. And sometimes you have to do it right away versus, having like 6 months to rehearse something, or, I mean, not 6 months, but like 6 weeks to rehearse something before you put it up and sort of, develop like a rhythm. And then, with film, you sort of have to create that right away on set, and then you've got one chance, maybe two. So I don't know. It's both like different and challenging, and I enjoy all of the process. That sounds so California.
And I also wanted to ask you, you're also currently appearing in MTV's web series, Status Updates as Audrey. So, what has that experience been like overall? And do you take maybe a different approach to preparing for that as opposed to maybe Sullivan and Sons and your films that you appeared in? What's that overall process like?
Well, for Sullivan and Son, it's the sitcom world is so it's like, because it's multi-camera and because we're performing for a live audience, it's a lot about the rhythm, and you sort of have to. It's like boom, 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 joke, and then is there a laugh, And so you always sort of have to make the choice that's the funny one, because it is, we are there to entertain and to get laughter. Whereas with a show like Status Update, I think it's more of like an internal laugh, and it's also a comedy, but it's not as broad, like we're not telling jokes. It's almost like a situational sort of, story about people in their 20s that are trying to date, in Los Angeles with all the technology like Facebook and, Twitters and Instagrams and Vines and Spotify's, and with all this technology that is supposed to make it easier for us to connect, it gets much more complicated. And I think, the tragedy of that is a little bit more subtle, and it's kind of like a ha ha ha, oh my God, I think, I'm going to die and kind of laugh. It's not, like, I don't know, I guess because we don't have like a live audience, it's actually, we get to do more subtle sort of tragic comedy.
And my last question for you is: do you have any upcoming projects besides Sullivan and Sons and Status Updates that you can discuss? Maybe do you have any films coming up as well besides the shows?
Yeah, I'm working on a show right now called, it's sort of in development, so I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but it's a short indie, and I get to play an art gallerist, sort of a curator, and that should be exciting. But I don't know, with independent films, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, and, it's like, yes, it's greenlit, like, we're on the go, and then on my, plane ride from Los Angeles to New York, they could say, go back, we lost some money, So I don't know, but I do plan to go to New York to shoot a small indie when the show wraps. And actually, this week is our last week of shooting for this season.
And Are there any updates maybe about a third season of Sullivan and Sons overall? Do
Yes,
you?
I hope so. I hope they order 100 more. We won't hear, like last year, this time we heard in September, and I think we aired in June. So I guess maybe it'll be the same thing. We hope to hear it soon. I think just the other day we were at rehearsal, and Rob Long, the creator of our show, he was so funny. He's like, okay, our show's got great ratings and it's hilarious. What more do you need? When are we renewed? And I was like, I thought that was really ballsy of them to say that, at the table read with all the networks and studios. It was really funny.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh, Karen, this is so fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I had a great time speaking with you as well.